I am a kid. I'm 14 years old. I'm a cheerleader. I love to play with my 2 dogs and enjoy nature and photography. I watch an excessive amount of TV, but come on, what kind of kid would I be if I didn't? I'm the youngest of my family of 8. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters who, while often annoying, are fun to be with when we're all together at the dinner table. I guess you could say I'm a typical kid. But what's not typical is what happened to me last year. You see, from kindergarten to 8th grade, I was always enrolled in private Christian schools. It was my own safe little bubble where I could openly share my beliefs and freely talk about God. In fact, that was our homework some days. We had Bible class every day and chapels every Thursday, where we would have praise and worship, and then a speaker would come in to give us a message. I knew everyone in my grade, and everyone knew me. After all, I was in a class of only about 60 kids. 8th grade started difficult for me friends-wise, but I finally found a good group who accepted me for me and included me in everything. I was even starting a girls' Bible study with one of my friends. I had also been on the cheer squad ever since 3rd grade. I had never known a life outside the confines and comforts of my small, cozy private school, so I expected I would stay there until I graduated. It was nearly perfect. I was right where I wanted to be. I couldn't imagine things ever changing, but they did.
I am a dad. Not just any dad, I'm her dad. I'm 55 years old. I've been married for 25 years, and my wife and I have been raising our 6 kids. I love to play hockey, and I still get out on the ice 3 times a week and play on a team with my sons. My greatest joys are spending time with my family, sharing stories at the dinner table, taking road trips, and just watching my kids grow up as they learn to take care of themselves. I guess you'd say I'm a typical dad. But what's not typical is what happened to me a few years ago. You see, I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was a kid with a lemonade stand. There's just something about starting your own business and making your own money that I fell in love with so long ago. And over the years, I've started, built, and even sold a few companies. And life was good. We lived in a nice house. We ate nice dinners. We drove nice cars, including an awesome 15-passenger Chevy van that we affectionately called the Ferrari. Now, most people don't know what it's like to have 8 people wherever you go. Going out to dinner requires waiting in line for 2 tables to be combined. Going on vacation requires 3 rows of seats on an airplane and 2 connecting hotel rooms. In fact, going anywhere requires 2 cars, unless, of course, you have the awesome 15-passenger Ferrari. Things were going so well, we decided to build our dream home. So we bought some land. Being an entrepreneur, I decided to buy even more land and build a dream subdivision instead. That way, our dream home would be completely paid for when we sold off all the extra lots. Yeah, life was good. And then something terrible happened, something completely out of my control. Ultimately, I'd find myself in a situation where I'd be unable to provide for my family.
Sometimes life throws you curveballs. You can do everything right, but somehow everything seems to go wrong. You may get a bad grade on something you worked hard for, or maybe a loved one died unexpectedly. And most of the time, it's out of your control. What you do next, however, is up to you. Maya Angelou once said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." In fact, it may be necessary to encounter these defeats, to know who you are, what you can rise from, how you can still come out of it. This quote perfectly demonstrates how important your next step is. Now, it isn't always easy to just get over it and move on. Believe me, I know. On the outside, you have a smile, because you can't let anyone know how you actually feel. However, on the inside, you battle confusion and anger. Maybe some of you are going through this now. Well, as someone who has been there, I'm here to describe to you what I went through and 3 steps of what to do when there's nothing you can do. What happened to me? Well, one day in my 8th grade year, I went on my mom's laptop to do some homework. Pulled up was a note that said, "Dear Celine," so of course I started reading it. The note described how my parents couldn't afford to keep me at my private school, and I was going to have to switch to a public school. I immediately closed the laptop, ran upstairs, and started crying. I thought, maybe I misread it, or she has to be joking. There had to be a different way. I made myself forget about it and convinced myself it was just a huge misunderstanding. However, my parents sat me down and basically told me what the note said. I was so confused. I had never expected this to happen. As the youngest of 6 kids, I felt like I got the leftovers of the others. They all got to do what they wanted to do, while I didn't even get a choice. I refused to accept this. I had just begun to feel like I fit in at my private school, but then I was ripped away from my comfortable situation and thrown into the dark and desolate unknown. I told some of my closest friends at school, and we tried coming up with a plan to raise money to get me to stay. However, we soon realized raising $60,000 on our own was completely unrealistic. I also avoided talking to my parents about this because I thought that they were the reason this was happening to me. After much thought, anger, and tears, I finally realized there was nothing I could do. No matter how hard this was, I had to accept this and understand that it was out of my control. Accepting the fact that there is no going back is the first step to moving forward when there's nothing you can do.
Even as an adult, life will throw you curveballs. Sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you. Well, I'm here to tell you what I went through and 3 steps you can take if you find yourself in a situation where there's nothing you can do. I did everything in my power to deny that the housing bubble of 2008 was going to affect me. I've always been a fighter, and I just figured I'd wait it out. The problem was waiting was costing me $15,000 a month. I'd done everything right, so I thought. I'd assembled a great team of developers and real estate experts and marketers. I'd built and sold businesses before, never in real estate, but hey, it's just another business. Little did I know that the housing market would continue to take a dive for another 4 years, much longer than my wallet could handle. I was headed for a major loss of millions of dollars, and there was nothing I could do. I was unable to see the signs and therefore deal with the fact that I'd picked the worst possible time to not just build our dream home, but to take on an entire subdivision. When it hit me that our land and development deal was so far underwater, I called a friend of mine and asked for his advice. I said, I've got 11 one-acre lots I can't sell. What can I do? He said he had 600 in the same condition, and he was leaving the country. While that didn't help solve my problem, I began to realize that this was a major issue that was affecting everyone, and I got caught up in something I'd never heard of before, the subprime mortgage crisis. It was that day that I decided to go outside, take a walk, think. After several hours of just beating myself up verbally and calling myself every name in the book, I had to face facts. My life savings had been wiped out. My dream subdivision was on the auction block. My banker was no longer taking my calls. I was looking at a 30-year do-over. That's a tough thing to accept. Accepting the fact that there's no going back is the first step to moving forward.
Having accepted the fact that there was no going back, I was faced with the decision of what to do next. I could either wallow in self-pity or adapt a new mindset. I wanted to pick the first choice, but knew that that would get me nowhere. So I decided to make the best out of this change. Adapting a new mindset that focuses on the future is the second step to moving forward. Of course, I was still upset and scared because, look at me, I'm tiny. However, instead of looking at my school change as something that was happening to me, I decided to look at it as an opportunity to grow from an unexpected obstacle. This allowed me to see the bright side of the situation and to see the new possibilities available to me by switching to a public school. For example, I was given the chance to try out for the cheer squad. Initially, I did not want to, because I didn't know a single person trying out, and I was intimidated. One of the primary reasons I did cheer at my old school was because all my friends were doing it. My mom, however, knew that I would regret not cheering. What did she know? She wasn't me. She wasn't going through what I was going through. We debated over it, and she finally forced me to try out for cheer. I was so irritated with her. Wasn't switching schools enough change for me this year? And now she was forcing me to do something else uncomfortable and new. I made the cheer squad, but was far from happy. I was still looking at it as the end of my private school. However, once I got to know my teammates and my coach, I soon realized that I had nothing to worry about and became excited to see where this change would lead me. Adapting a new mindset changes how you view your future, despite what may be going on in the present. It isn't easy, but in the end, it's that simple, and you may just need someone like your mom to help you see that.
You know, I mentioned going on a walk and verbally beating myself up. What I didn't tell you was that a few hours into it, I just started to laugh. I came to the conclusion you can only beat yourself up for so long, and then you got to face facts. I had to change my thinking. I had to adapt a new mindset. Adapting a new mindset that focuses on the future instead of dwelling on the past is the second step to moving forward. I had to rethink how I thought about my loss. It was really beginning to affect how I thought about myself. All I kept thinking was, you're a failed real estate developer. That's not a healthy identity to embrace. But that left me a haunting question. Who am I now? I had to go back to my lemonade stand days, back to the basics. I was an entrepreneur then. I am an entrepreneur. It's all I've ever been. Real estate development was a failed project, but that didn't make me a failure. Yeah, I lost a lot of money. But I still had my family, my health, and my friends. Changing my thinking from loss to lesson is what allowed me to move forward. It wasn't easy. It took years. But I learned so much in the process. My loss was a major failure, but I gained so much wisdom from the experience. Accept the fact that there's no going back. Adapt a new mindset that focuses on the future rather than dwelling on the past, and you'll be ready for the final step in the process.
The final step in the process is to take action. I had accepted my situation, I had adapted a new mindset, and now I needed to act on my thoughts. You see, you can't look back when you're taking action. You must use all of your experiences and lessons learned from past struggles to make a plan and move forward. Starting as a freshman in a class of over 800 students at a public school for the first time was definitely a nerve-wracking and scary situation. But with my new mindset, I was able to look forward and grow. I didn't dwell in the past and think about how great life would have been at my old private school, but instead I looked to the future and the abundance of new opportunities set before me that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Instead of missing my old classes, I challenged myself to enroll in rigorous classes that wouldn't have been offered at my private school and that would better me. Instead of lamenting over lost friendships, I learned to get outside of my comfort zone and introduce myself to new people. At lunch, I would look for those who were sitting alone and invite them to come sit with my new friends and I at our table because I knew how uncomfortable and scary it was to not know anyone. I always made an effort to look out for those who might be going through the same thing that I went through. This step is very important because you're applying all that you have learned and gained from the previous two steps to create your future. Although I was compelled to switch schools and try out for cheer, I'm very grateful and have learned many new lessons that can be applied next time I'm faced with challenges.
I'd accepted our situation, adapted a new mindset, and now it's time to take action. I knew I had to tell my wife everything, and it was going to be devastating news. We sat and cried as I shared with her that everything that we had worked so hard and so long for was gone. Dream home, gone. Our life savings, gone. Kids' college fund, gone. It was all gone. And on top of that, I never had a job. There was just nothing leaving us to Dallas anymore. So I asked my wife, where do you want to live? I feared her response because I'd been shouldering all of the shame and blame of our new reality. She said, I want to live wherever you are. That was the perfect answer for me because, to be honest, she could have freaked out and blamed me for everything, and that would have only made me feel worse. What she said in that simple sentence was, I'm with you, and we're in this together. As you can see, I married way over my head. It was time for a new plan. My plan was simple. We had to cut back expenses to the bare essentials, and I had to go find work. As you figured out by now, Celine caught wind of the cutback plan when she looked on her mother's computer. Cutting back meant no more private schools, no more college tuitions, no more select team sports, no more dinners out with the family, no new cars, and selling off that awesome 15-passenger van. My wife and I had gone through the 3 steps of accepting our situation, adapting a new mindset, and we're taking action. And now it's going to be Celine's turn, along with the rest of our kids. For me, it was time to think of a new business to start, because that's what entrepreneurs do. I don't know what challenges you might be facing. Maybe you're beating yourself up for poor decisions, like I was. Maybe you've been betrayed in a trusted relationship, like Celine. Maybe you're dealing with shame and blaming someone or something for life not going the way you planned. Whatever your challenge, if it's cut you to the core, if you feel you've lost control, if you feel like there's nothing you can do, we're here to tell you there is something you can do to take back control of your life.
So what do you do when there's nothing you can do? What do you do when you feel hopeless, helpless, and hurt? Accept, adapt, and act. Accept the fact that there is no going back to the way things were before. It doesn't matter if your challenges were created by you or not. Blaming others or yourself won't change anything. Stop hoping things were different. Hoping doesn't change anything. Don't wish your life was easier. Choose to be better.
Adapt a new mindset that focuses on the future rather than dwelling on the past. Only you control your thoughts. No one can control your thinking. My friend Edie Eger was 17 years old when she and her family were sent to Auschwitz, a Nazi death camp, where her parents were killed in the Holocaust. Just before they were separated, Edie's mother told her, "Remember, dear, no one can take away from you what you put here in your own mind." Edie vowed to never let the Nazis control her thinking, and she still teaches this principle today. Edie taught me, if you can control your focus, you can control your future.
And finally, you have to take action. It's action that creates the change. Until then, you're just playing head games. Taking action is hard. You might need someone to push you. But understand one thing. Until you get started, nothing will change. But the good news is, once you do get started, everything will change.
Everything.